All right, guys, class is in session and the professor is in the house as we're about to break down all the big fights of the year with UFC 281 around the corner this weekend. It is a pleasure to welcome our friend Dan Hardy back to the program to get us ready for this huge matchup. Dan, welcome back to the show, man.
Always good to talk with you guys. Always good to talk with you, especially before these big fights. It's an exciting one. And I know that Adesanya's fighting, so you're even more excitable.
Well, that's right. That's right. You help us and everybody tuning in get excited. I can't wait. Dude, first things first, though, before we talk about UFC 281, what's going on with your fight with Diego Sanchez? What exactly happened there? I see people on Twitter asking about it. Tell us the story. What happened?
Yeah, so basically the card was picked up by Sky Sports and they decided that they wanted the Hatton Barrera fight off the card and to add all the rest of their own fights to it, because obviously they've got a deal with Boxer and they've got loads of fighters signed to their management team. So yeah, they basically just took the Hatton Barrera fight and then cancelled the rest of the fights. I've had a bit of a chat with Diego about it. Of course, he was disappointed as well, but it's the fight game. It's chaotic at the moment, and new promoters getting into the business, I think sometimes they bite off a bit more than they can chew, and I think that might have been what happened. I hope it goes really well, but I'm aside from following Ricky Hatton's Instagram, I'm really not hearing anything about it.
I can't find anything about it anyway.
I hope it goes well because Ricky looks in great shape, but I'm not sure. I'll be watching it anyway.
Well, for those who don't understand, it was obviously supposed to be this weekend, and originally it was supposed to be July 2nd. So it's like, we keep getting excited to have you on. Look forward to talking about, the journey, the training, and this and that. So it's frustrating for the fans. But the good thing is, you seem in good spirits. I was going to ask you, how do you feel about it, man?
I was very disappointed because I just finished training the first time it was cancelled. It was 2 weeks before the event was supposed to happen in July, they told me. And then same thing with this time around. I was training up to a week and a half ago, in motion to the fight. And then right after a really good training session, they called me and let me know that it was cancelled.
You found out a week and a half ago. That's like two and a half weeks before the fight.
Yeah. But I mean, this is the there was no surprise, to be honest, because it kind of gone quiet. I wasn't seeing a great deal of promotional stuff. But it's disappointing. It is disappointing. But I've had another contract come through. It's not a fight contract, but it is a contract within mixed martial arts for a new job. So I can't say any more about it, but it's going to keep me busy for the next couple of years. I'm very excited.
Oh, wow, man. Well, congratulations. We can't wait to hear what it is. And when you make the announcement, obviously we have to get you back on to celebrate, do a little celebration chat. But what does this mean for your return, dude? I mean, okay, a week and a half ago, they're like, this thing isn't happening. You're signing this new contract. You're going to be pretty busy, it seems like, for the next couple of years. Is it still going to happen? Are you at a point where you're just kind of happy maybe to just focus on this new contract and not do a return? Where's your mindset at?
I mean, it does kind of feel, and this is what my mum said. My mum said it kind of feels like the universe is telling you something here. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm just clinging on to something. But to be honest, I mean, I still feel great. I still feel in good condition. My mind's sharp, and there are a couple of options for the new year. There's a couple of options, a couple of people's names I've got in mind. But to be honest, I'm going with what comes to me at the moment. I'm so busy with the YouTube channel, with the new project that's coming up in the new year. That's going to be incredible. That might give me an opportunity to compete again as well in mixed martial arts. And I'm taking things in my stride a bit more. I've had so many curveballs these last 6 months. It's been a bit of a stressful ride. But I'm sitting in front of you today with a smile on my face, and I'm feeling very positive about the new year. Very, very positive.
Yeah, I love that. And it's also like, I think a lot of us went through some hard times through COVID, and a lot of us go through hard times right now listening to this show. I know a lot of our listeners going through it with everything that's going on. So it's really awesome to see a positive attitude and the way you're handling the situation. Last one before we move on to 281. I just wonder, man, your breakdowns are epic. Everyone loves to watch your channel. You've got this contract coming up in the new year that we're excited to hear about. I just wonder, what's the motivation for you to even get back in there at this point? It seems like you got so many cool things going on. How do you find that fire to get back in there with so much on the plate, so many cool things coming up?
It's just the rush, isn't it? You know, as excited as I am about everything else, there's nothing more exciting than fighting. Not in my experience anyway. You know, the adrenaline rush, the nerves, the anxiety that comes with it, the feeling of being in physical shape, ready to compete at a good level. You know, there's lots of reasons. There's lots of reasons. And, you know, there are like there's fights this weekend happening at 281, the likes of Chandler and Poirier. Like, tastes are changing. You know, people are enjoying these older veterans who show up to fight regardless of where their career's going afterwards. Like, I'm expecting an absolute war from these two, and I'm kind of feeling like both of them are winding down in their careers now, which it doesn't change my excitement about their fights. And there's a lot of guys I would still enjoy watching. I mean, you know, even Anderson Silva boxing. I know, of course, he lost to Jake Paul, but if he wants to still compete and he's enjoying it, why not? I've got no problem with it. What we think about fight sports and what fight sports are two very different things. People cling to the peak too much. Sometimes it's just about having a good fight.
100%.
So you're saying Dan Hardy versus Anderson Silva next year. This is all I'm picking up from.
I feel bad hitting it at this point, to be honest. I love Anderson so much.
Oh, yeah. I know, dude. That Jack fight was tough to watch. It's just like, no, Daddy, no. No. All right. All right. Let's talk UFC 281 because we don't have a ton of time. Before we talk about the fight itself, you know, with Israel, right? Obviously, everybody here right now is a massive Israel fan. We all appreciate his work, but obviously, he's sort of in this similar GSP situation, right? Where some people don't really give him the credit that he deserves, and some people, and fair enough, they're not as entertained by his fights. You know, hey, as paying customers, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But like, he's facing criticism. The Jared Cannonier one, the Yoel Romero one, you know, even the Vettori one. But it does kind of remind us of like GSP, where he got that criticism during his run. Afterwards, people appreciate him and see him in a different light. How would you sort of describe what he brings to the table, and what is your take on the criticism that he's been getting, especially leading into this one?
I think it's kind of wild, to be honest. I mean, Israel Adesanya is a special champion. The fact that we get to watch him fight live at this moment in our lifetime, you know, we're quite fortunate. It was the same thing with GSP when he was competing live. You know, fighting against him or training with him or watching him compete live was a privilege. I felt the same thing about Jose Aldo and Frankie Edgar. And, you know, there's lots of fighters I feel like that about. Israel Adesanya is an absolute wizard. He's a technician. If you're not getting excited about his fights, then you're not understanding the depth of his capability. And anyone that stands in front of Yoel Romero or Jared Cannonier, the people that are complaining about Israel Adesanya would be clinging to the fence and screaming for help if they were in there with Yoel Romero or Jared Cannonier. They're not putting these things into perspective. What Adesanya was able to do against Romero and Cannonier, it's impressive in its own right. Now, I have complaints when I see a fight like Rose and Carla Esparza. Really difficult to watch, but I didn't feel that with Adesanya. I always feel like there's something happening, and I'm anxious and waiting for something to happen. And you know, this fight against Pereira, I don't expect it to be any different. I think Adesanya is going to be a real technician in there, because why would you stand and trade with someone like that? We know what he brings to the table. Adesanya is going to put on a masterclass, I expect. Whether he can avoid getting knocked out or not, that's why we're watching. But I expect Adesanya to be there to put on a masterclass and to prove the naysayers wrong.
Now, I got to give you some credit, my man, and give you some flowers, because you not only did breakdowns for this fight, but you also went back and you broke down Israel's first and second kickboxing matches with Alex Pereira, which is awesome, man, because not a lot of people actually got a chance to watch them, right? And the only thing they really know from those fights is the fact that Israel got knocked out in that one fight, and they remember that sort of image of somebody putting some oxygen on his face and all that kind of stuff. But I want to know, when it comes to this fight happening, what is your take on the mental game going in there for Israel? Because it's interesting, like watching interviews with him, he's not the kind of guy that's really seems like he's impacted by it at all. It looks like he went through it. He dealt with that knockout. He knows that he had heaps of success against Alex in the first fight, arguably won that one, had success in that second fight before he got knocked out. So what do you think he takes into this fight mentally? Do you think he takes that KO loss and the fact that, okay, like I can't let this happen on the big stage at Madison Square Garden? Or do you think he more so takes the fact that, hey, I was beating this guy in the first fight and I was beating him in that second fight before this happened?
Yeah, I think he's going to be confident. You know, I watched the first fight several times before I did the breakdown. I feel like he won that fight. I felt like he outpointed Pereira and was comfortable taking some of his biggest shots. In the second fight, he was even more confident because he felt like he won the first one and he was annoyed that he didn't get the decision. And, you know, he had a standing 8 count right before he was knocked out. There was a little bit of overconfidence in the way that he was fighting. And when he threw that left cross that left him open for the left hook of Pereira, he was committed. There was nothing he could do about that power punch. And any given day with you know, any gloves and any opponent, Pereira is going to knock that person out. Of course, that's a possibility in mixed martial arts. But what we have to remember is that Adesanya has also spent a lot of time in the ring, moving around with Pereira at a closer range than it will be in mixed martial arts. And he's felt his power. You know, those big gloves, they're a benefit in some ways because they give you a bit of a shield to hide behind. But the other thing as well is it makes the weapons flying at your head much bigger. And Adesanya is so good at slipping, you know, inches to one side or the other of the fist or the other. If the fist is smaller, surely it's going to increase his chances of getting his head out of the way. I mean, the question is, can he keep Pereira off him? You know, that's the big question, because Pereira is not going to be as concerned with Adesanya's striking power as Adesanya should be with Pereira's. I mean, you know, you watch those first 2 kickboxing matches back, and I mean, I said it in the breakdown. If Adesanya had Pereira's power, he would have knocked Pereira out over and over again. Like, he landed clean right hands over and over again. He landed a clean head kick in the second fight to counter his left hook. Like, and the other thing as well you have to remember is that Adesanya's had 24 MMA fights and Pereira's had 7. It takes a time to adjust to being a mixed martial artist. The range is different. You know, the timing and the space that you're working with is different. And that first fight that Pereira had as a pro, that's a clear sign. You know, he came out expecting to be able to put people away with 4-ounce gloves, and he ended up getting choked out because the guy wouldn't go down. Like, Pereira can't bank on the fact that he's going to knock out Adesanya with one punch, and Adesanya can't act the whole fight like the one punch that lands is going to knock him out. And I don't think either of them will, which is why I think that they'll both come in with a lot of respect and a realistic perspective of what happened and how long ago it was. I mean, that last fight was 5 years ago.
Fascinated by this matchup on the feet. Obviously, Israel, incredible speed, movement, feints, head movement. It's really hard to really even get anything on him the way that he's able to move around. Most people kind of freak out and don't know what to do. Pereira's striking is amazing. Of course, he's a champion. He's got a lot of power. But what do you think is an adjustment that he needs to make in this one on the feet in order to have more success against Israel outside of just landing the KO if he's looking to win this one?
You know, I think he needs to take space away from Adesanya. I mean, that's really the story of this fight. Pereira, although he is the same height, I mean, they're both 6'4". I think there's an inch reach advantage to Adesanya. The way that they stand is so different. Adesanya stands really wide with his stance. He needs a lot of space for his stance because he likes to slip and move and get his head out of the way. Pereira's got a slightly shorter stance, which enables him to, you know, pressure people, but he also has to close them down. Easier to close Adesanya down against the ropes in a kickboxing match than it is against the fence. But then the downside for Adesanya, and if you watch those first couple of fights back, when Pereira is punching Adesanya at the ropes, Adesanya's got the advantage of being able to slip and lean over that top rope. You know, if Pereira traps him up against the fence in the octagon, there's no slipping away. You know, he has to make sure that he's got his back foot right up against the fence in order to land those powerful shots. And, you know, going through the guard of Adesanya is not going to be a concern for Pereira with his power. It's more making sure Adesanya is there as a target to hit, so he's not drifting away and getting countered.
Also, like, when you hear Israel in interviews, he's talking about how his style is better suited more for MMA. He said that he's always felt like that, and he likes the fact that he can throw elbows and do stuff in the clinch. I'm trying to read between the lines. Like, outside of the gloves, what other adjustments do you think he's going to make, or things that specifically give him an advantage in MMA as opposed to kickboxing? And I'm wondering, like, I don't see Israel, in theory, he would have the grappling advantage over Pereira, but I don't see him making this, like, grappling contest because I think he wants to prove a point. I think he feels like he's the superior kickboxer, so I don't think he feels the need to take Pereira down and beat him on the ground. And I think he wants to send a statement. But do you see Israel incorporating any grappling at all? Maybe even in the early rounds or later rounds, maybe even just to throw Pereira off and just keep him guessing. Like, what other more? What about this fight do you think is going to be more MMA as opposed to the last couple of fights being specifically kickboxing?
Yeah, no, I think the range is the biggest difference for them. I mean, you watch the way that Adesanya fought Costa and the way he fought Whittaker recently as well. The distance between their hips was much wider than it would be if it was a kickboxing match. That's the biggest adjustment that Pereira's got to make because Adesanya's going to feel further away than he was the last two times. The other thing Adesanya needs to do is work that lead leg of Pereira, and he didn't do that very well in their previous kickboxing matches because the range was so close. If Adesanya was throwing low kicks, he was getting punched in the head. So he wasn't really investing in low kicks. He was using his base more to slip out of the way and make sure he wasn't getting caught with big punches. But the way that he dismantled the lead leg of Costa, I think that would be wise for him because it also nullifies the left hook of Pereira. And when it comes to the grappling element, I've kicked this around in my head over and over again. The hesitation for Adesanya is that it would be a waste of energy that he may not be able to take anywhere. Like Pereira's got good takedown defense. He's got good knees at close range. He's a strong physical individual that really fights to stay at middleweight. Like I don't know as Adesanya is going to be willing to burn off that energy and waste it, knowing this is a 5-round fight. I think it would be smarter for him to just stay away from Pereira. If anything, it might be Pereira closing him down because he's sick of trying to reach him and not getting his hands on him. And with Teixeira in his corner, if anybody's going to grapple, I kind of think to myself, Teixeira might give him enough ground game to be able to put Adesanya down and hit him a few times. Like I know Adesanya says he's working on his ground game, but I just don't really see any evidence of it. He didn't look comfortable at all against Jan Blachowicz. His takedown defense looked good against Vettori, but that was against the fence. And I feel like someone like Glover Teixeira is going to be able to see a clear path through Adesanya's basic grappling defense to be able to at least put him on the floor and make him uncomfortable for a minute. I fully expect a kickboxing match, don't get me wrong. But if one of them does grapple, I actually think it might be Pereira.
It's fascinating that grappling along the cage and who kind of can utilize that the best as well. It's going to be really interesting for me to see that aspect too. Okay, so let's not kind of sugarcoat it. When it comes to the stakes here, I mean, for me, when I look at it, Alex is really in this win-win situation. If he's able to beat Israel again, he has everything to gain. And if he loses, it's like everybody loses to Israel. You said it. He's a special champion, and he's had his chance to fight at Madison Square Garden and claim the title. So, what do you think is on the line? Like when you look at this fight, how much do you think the stakes play a part here? How much do you think this story for Alex of almost this Rocky-like story of like everything to gain, nothing to lose, and Israel coming in there with a lot on the line, how much do you think it can play a part as well on the night?
I think it can play a big part, but I don't think this is necessarily the best situation for Pereira because, Adesanya is probably one of the best matchups for him in the middleweight division, aside from someone like Strickland. Adesanya is one of the better matchups because you can almost guarantee that he's not going to want to grapple. But then if you put Pereira in there against someone like Whittaker or Vettori or Gastelum or, there's a lot of people that I think would try and wrestle him. And there could be more problematic fights on the way up to the title than there is in the title fight. I feel like he's in a fortuitous position because Adesanya is the champion. But ultimately, he could have done with being in the division a little earlier, so he could have had a few more fights at a moderate level to work on his grappling takedown defense before he got up to the championship. Because even if he beats Adesanya, most likely we'll get a rematch. If he beats Adesanya again, then he's going to have to fight someone that's going to wrestle him. And that's really where it starts to come apart. Adesanya's already proven himself that he can stuff takedowns and keep the fight on the feet. And I don't know as I've seen the same thing from Pereira, certainly not at the level of the grapplers that he might be facing. The guys coming up through the division, the likes of Andre Muniz, even Derek Brunson, as ugly as Derek Brunson's striking is, he believes in that left hand and he's confident to close distance. And he only needs to take Pereira down once a round. Like it might really throw the belt absolutely up in the air. And it might also put Pereira in a situation where there are now no easy fights because he's already been a title contender and now all of his fights are top 10. And that might be a really rough time in his career if he doesn't evolve quickly enough.
Yeah, even Luke Rockhold was joking to us about how he's going to come out of retirement if Alex Pereira wins, and he's going to go for that belt. And I think even every wrestler in the division is going to be chomping at the bit to try and take that belt away from Alex. Speaking of wrestling, don't wrestle with your rusty razor anymore in the shower, trying to smooth out your junk, and don't wrestle with too many gift ideas this holiday season. The answer is simple. The Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0, the greatest pound-for-pound grooming tool in the world. Throw out that rusty razor. Say hello to the best grooming tool in the world with its ceramic blade, the skin-safe technology, so you don't have to worry about cutting one of your nuts off anymore or leaving your balls looking like a fight of the night performance. It's got the LED light, waterproof, great motor. It lasts, it's like Ric Flair, lasts all night, and then you chuck it on the wireless charging dock and you're good to go. Also, the Lawnmower 3.0 is now available at all Woolworths stores in Australia. So, next time you're in Woolies and you're looking for something, maybe for yourself, a cheeky gift for yourself, or even a gift for somebody else, you can pick up that Lawnmower 3.0, and the Platinum Package 4.0 is the best value deal yet, and an excellent gift this holiday season with the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, the Ultra Premium body wash, Ultra Premium 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner, Ultra Premium deodorant, Crop Preserver anti-chafing board deodorant, Crop Reviver ball spray toner, and free underwear and the Shed travel bag. Everything to make you smell and look like the best man you can possibly be, and guaranteed that you'll be stuffing many a stocking this holiday season. Am I right, Dennis?
That's right, man. Those reindeer, they don't fly by accident. Smooth reindeer dicks, and that's thanks to Manscaped. 20% off and 20% off and free shipping with a code word submission. Get onto it today and secure Christmas presents thanks to Manscaped. And guys, huge fights right around the corner, and there's only one place to go to make all of your bets, and that is with our friends at MyBookie, of course. A lot of stuff happening, like this Ricky Hatton boxing match, but UFC 281 on the docket as one of the biggest fight cards of the year, and you guys can get a match deposit, 100% match deposit, thanks to using the code word submission. Claim your deposit bonus, dollar for dollar, all the way up to $1,000 at MyBookie. And I want to know in the comment section below, who will you be backing in the fight come this weekend? What is the fight that you'll be making your money on? Don't forget to make your picks, make your bets at MyBookie, and then tag us at Submission Radio on socials so we could see all of the money that you'll be making. Again, claim your deposit bonus, dollar for dollar, all the way up to $1,000 with the code word submission at MyBookie. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with our friends at MyBookie, Cass.
That's right. And if you're one of the many people who were disgruntled because you wanted to watch the phenomenal Dan Hardy breakdown show on BT Sport, but couldn't because you're not in the UK and you are a victim of geo-blocking, as we all are, that's okay. NordVPN here to the rescue, so you can, with one click of a button, change your geolocation on your computer. Now your computer thinks you're in the UK, and bang, all the goodness of BT Sport right on your computer in crisp, I'm going to say 4K. I'm assuming it's 4K. Even if it's 1080p, that's all good. And it works the same way for streaming services. If you want to access titles on maybe American Netflix, Canadian Netflix, German Netflix, whatever, any Netflix around the world, you just change your geolocation. You can watch anything. And also, you can save money this holiday season when you're getting gifts, because the same things cost different in different countries. So, for example, Dennis, he wanted the NBA League Pass. He said, I'm not paying the Australian rates. I'm going to make my computer think I'm in like the Philippines or something where it's nice and cheap. And that's exactly what he did. Works for Mexican Netflix. Mexican Netflix is, I think, one of the cheapest. But you can, once you pay, you can have access to whatever titles you want in your country. And it works for all things, flights, other things, pay-per-views, you name it. Saves you money and also protects you with the threat protection, protects your data. Every week there's another bloody data breach with some big company leaking everyone's data. Protect your data, and also no speed throttling or buffering, so you can watch all that crisp 4K hentai with no buffering. Isn't that right, Dennis?
That's right, man. No buffering at all. And you guys can get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan plus 4 months for free by going to nordvpn.com/submission or click the link in the description below. This is an exclusive deal for all you crazy Submission Radio fans out there. And it's so nice. I'm going to say it twice. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Try it today and change your life for the better thanks to NordVPN.
All right, I got to ask you, as far okay, let's assume, because we live in MMA where the sport is always about what's next. Let's assume Israel wins for a second. What do you think would be next for him, logically speaking? I know he's talking a lot about Strickland. He would like that Strickland fight, but Strickland has to get a win first. I believe he's facing Cannonier at the end of the year, so timeline wise, that might work out. But then we've got UFC Perth. Like, is it maybe Strickland? Is it maybe a third fight with Rob at some point? Is it Hamzat? Like, there's not really a clear path here. Who do you think would even be next for Israel?
Yeah, honestly, I think the best thing for Adesanya to do if he wins here is to go back up to 205. You know, a fight against Jiří Procházka would be, you know, absolute fireworks, and I think the UFC could really sell that as a headline pay-per-view. I mean, you know, just the fighting styles alone would be fascinating. He's in a bit of a difficult situation, isn't he? Because ultimately, you know, if he beats Pereira, then he's effectively cleared out the division, and you're waiting for someone to come through from the lower levels, or someone to reinvigorate their game. I didn't see anything from Whittaker that gives me confidence that fight would go another way. I honestly can't really think of anybody in the middleweight division aside the one I'm watching out for is Andre Muniz. But I just don't feel like he's quite ready. The reason I'm excited for him is because he knows he's a grappler. He doesn't want to be a striker with Israel Adesanya, and that's what we need to put Adesanya in there against. Someone that's really going to threaten him on the ground as a middleweight. Like that's the way that he lost to Jan Blachowicz, wasn't it, ultimately? I mean, that was the deciding factor. The difference was the wrestling, which is why I think Teixeira might consider getting Pereira to wrestle and grapple a little bit as well. But I think ultimately moving back up to 205 will be the smart thing to do. Otherwise, you know, you call out someone like a Rockhold and say, well, you'll fight Pereira if he beats me, but you won't fight me. What's up with that? I think there are a couple of options for him, but not like immediate title contenders.
It's interesting as well because Israel knows a money fight, and he likes, this Pereira thing. A lot of people would have been like, no, if I really want to give this guy a shot, but he sees he can make money with it. So I wonder what he looks at Hamzat like, especially if Hamzat gets bigger and can't cut that weight to welterweight anymore, can win a fight over a high-ranked guy in the middleweight division. Going to be fascinating.
Just quickly before you go, I'm just looking at it. You know what's funny? It's like every fight is always like, oh, this is the big test. Like right now, Pereira seems like the big test for Israel. But then like, if Muniz like works his way up, like that's gonna be the big test, or seen as that way. And then like, let's say he went up to 205, it's like, oh, Jiří Procházka. And then imagine a scenario where Israel beats Jiří, and then let's say Jiří beats Glover again, right? And then you think, oh, it's done for Glover, no more title shots. Then Israel wins, and Glover's like, you know what? I'm back. And then it's like Glover's the biggest test. And then it's like Hamzat with his wrestling, that's the biggest test. So there's actually a few like, seemingly massive fights and big tests for Israel.
I feel like maybe, I don't know, John Jones, like, all right, I'll go back to light heavyweight. There's a big money fight here. All right, what's your prediction here, Dan, as we wrap? Well, how do you think this actually plays out?
I'm leaning towards Adesanya. I feel like the small gloves, the bigger space, the wider corners, 135 degrees instead of 90, gives him more get outs if he's moving laterally up against the fence. And I still feel like, in 7 fights, Pereira's probably not fully adapted to the top flight mixed martial arts level just yet. Doesn't mean that he can't, but I feel like Adesanya, with the experience that he's got, the advantage is going to be too great for him at that range, and I feel like he's going to outpoint him to a decision. Might have a couple of airy moments where he gets dropped and hurt, but I don't think he's going to get put away. I think he's a bit too slick in those small gloves.
All right, well, we're officially excited. Follow the man on Twitter and Instagram at Dan Hardy MMA. Of course, if you're not subscribed to Full Reptile, what the hell are you doing, man? Some of the greatest analysis and previews and post-show content out there. And of course, the Dan Hardy Breakdown Show on BT Sport. I know we'll be using that NordVPN so we can watch the sexy content. And then, of course, Dan's book, Part Reptile. We look forward to all the fantastic content and, the potential return somewhere down the line. Till then, we're enjoying everything else, Dan. Thank you so much for making us even more excited for this fight.
Thank you, guys. Always good talking to you.